The wind clawed across the frozen expanse of Cryon-IV, dragging fine crystals of ice over the wrecks of half-buried gunships and the bones of trees long petrified by cold. In the distance, where the horizon dissolved into a blue-white haze, two human figures moved against the snow, almost invisible beneath their camouflage suits. Sergeant Wyatt Hale led the way, his boots biting into the crusted surface with the deliberate rhythm of a man who had learned to let silence speak for him. Beside him trudged Corporal Vega, a bulkier figure carrying a spotting scope and the shared weight of exhaustion. Both were wrapped in insulated armor that made them look more like fragments of the landscape than living soldiers. They had been awake for 30 hours. The alien offensive had not paused once during that time. The Zha'kor Dominion, a coalition of species with technology centuries ahead of Earth's, had descended on Cryon-IV to seize its rare mineral crust. Humanity, stubborn as ever, had refused to yield the colony. Every battle since had been one-sided, at least on paper. The aliens possessed plasma artillery and shielded mechs. The humans had cold rifles, colder hands, and an unwillingness to die quietly. Hours earlier, Hale had stood behind his commander inside the command dome, a transparent hemisphere half buried in the ice. Across the table, the alien generals had shimmered in their holographic forms, tall, translucent, and cruelly elegant. General Threx, the eldest of them, had delivered the insult with the confidence of one who had never been challenged. "Your snipers amuse us," he'd said, his words translated into a smooth, mechanical voice. "Do you expect those primitive projectiles to scratch our armor? You might as well throw stones into a storm." Laughter, distorted through static, had filled the channel. Even through the cold, Hale had felt his face heat. Commander Arlen had remained motionless, jaw tight, eyes on the alien projection until it vanished. Then he turned to Hale and said only, "Show them what stones can do." No explanation, no plan, just a mission. Hale had understood. Now, sprawled in the snow beneath a broken ridge, he began assembling his rifle with the quiet reverence of craftsmen. The weapon was a modified Barrett, its surface etched with frost and history. Each part fit into place with a metallic click that seemed too loud for the open wilderness. Vega crouched beside him, adjusting the tripod, breath steaming against his faceplate. "They really think we're jokes," Vega muttered, scanning the valley through his rangefinder. "All that tech, and they still underestimate what physics does to flesh. That's why they'll lose," Hale said. His voice carried no emotion, only focus. He locked the barrel in place, adjusted the scope, and checked the wind. "Find me their eyes." Vega's gloved finger pointed toward a distant glint across the valley, an alien command spire half buried in ice, humming with blue energy. Holographic banners shimmered above it, the mark of the Dominion. Hale magnified the view. Movement on the platform, silhouettes of alien officers pacing behind transparent shields. Threx was likely among them, preparing another broadcast. The landscape between them was a graveyard. Mangled vehicles, frozen corpses, fragments of metal caught mid-collapse. The snow had muffled everything except the occasional thunder of alien artillery beyond the mountains. Hale exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of his weapon settle into the snow. The rifle wasn't sleek or elegant like alien weapons. It was heavy, brutal, reliable, the way human inventions had always been. "Distance?" he asked. 2.3 clicks, Vega replied. "Wind steady from the east, 12 knots. Temps dropping fast." Hale nodded. The air stung every patch of exposed skin, yet he felt strangely calm. He'd fought in deserts and jungles, but the cold was different. It simplified things. You moved or you froze. You aimed or you missed. You lived or you didn't. Through the scope, he watched an alien officer step to the edge of the platform, gesturing with 4 elongated arms as though lecturing the storm. The arrogance was almost beautiful in its certainty. Hale adjusted for elevation and drift, but didn't fire. Not yet. He wanted the timing perfect. "Command wants confirmation," Vegas said quietly. "They think this ridge is unstable. We fire, we might bring half of it down on us." Hale's lips curved beneath the frost. Then we fire fast. A faint pulse crackled through his earpiece. Commander Arlen's voice. Ghostline, your discretion. Make it count. Then silence again. Vega checked his thermal readouts. Their shields are up. You won't punch through. Hale didn't answer. He knew better than to argue physics with an alien's confidence. The Dominion's shields weren't solid barriers. They fluctuated at molecular intervals, cycling energy to deflect plasma. Against directed energy, they were perfect. Against a dense, high-velocity slug with enough momentum to crack a mech chassis, they weren't tested. He thought of Threx's laughter, of every broadcast that called humanity a dying species. He thought of the frozen bodies scattered below, the men and women who had refused to retreat. His fingers moved almost unconsciously, locking the magazine, aligning the bolt, breathing through the sting of the cold. The wind eased for a moment. The valley grew unnaturally still. Vegas sensed it too. He leaned closer. You're thinking of taking the shot now. Hale's eye remained fixed to the scope. No, not yet. They need to keep mocking. Why? Because when they stop, they'll remember the silence. Far across the valley, a new transmission lit the sky, projected above the alien spire. A hologram of Threx himself, towering and translucent, addressing both armies. His voice boomed through every comm channel. Humanity, surrender your futile weapons. Your bullets are whispers against the storm. We will cleanse this world and make it pure. Vega whispered. Guess we're the storm then. Hale smiled faintly and adjusted the scope again, centering the crosshairs just below the projection on the source of its power. Through his lens, the light flickered like a heartbeat. He could feel the moment building, the calm before an unseen avalanche. He exhaled once more, steady and deliberate, letting the mockery echo across the frozen plain until even the wind seemed to pause to listen. Then he whispered, We'll answer soon. The words vanished into the frost, carried away by the wind, leaving behind only the sound of metal settling, the faint hum of alien energy across the valley, and the stillness of two soldiers waiting for the right second to make history. The sky above Cryon-IV dimmed to a bruised blue as the sun began to sink behind the frozen ridges. The temperature dropped sharply, enough that Hale could feel the ice tightening around his gloves. Frost crept over the body of his rifle, painting its matte surface with a thin sheen that caught the last traces of light. He watched through the scope, his heartbeat syncing with the rhythmic whir of the alien command spire across the valley. The enemy was repositioning, preparing their next wave. Every movement was a study in arrogance. Mechs gliding into formation, officers broadcasting commands over open frequencies, unaware that a human lay 2 kilometers away, marking each of them in silence. Winds shifting, Vega murmured, his breath fogging his visor. He adjusted the spotting scope, noting the changes on his data slate. 9 knots northwest. Air density's higher. You'll need to compensate by... I know. Hale interrupted gently. His tone wasn't dismissive. It was focused. He had stopped needing numbers years ago. The feel of the air against his cheek told him enough. They'll send drones soon. We won't get another chance like this. They've got motion sensors along the ridge, Vega warned. If we fire, they'll triangulate our position in seconds. Hale's eyes never left the target. We only need one shot. Below, the alien army was assembling. The Zha'kor infantry moved with precision, their armor refracting the dim light like shards of ice. Floating above them, shimmering shields overlapped in a hexagonal pattern, forming a dome that distorted the landscape behind it. The field pulsed with energy, an iridescent ripple of advanced engineering. It was meant to make them untouchable. The sight of it should have been discouraging, but Hale felt something else rise within him. Curiosity. Every defense had a weakness. It was a law of physics, of nature, of war. He shifted his focus, zooming in on the shield's oscillation patterns. Each cycle emitted a faint pulse, a flicker too brief for the untrained eye. It was there, the momentary lapse when 2 energy grids overlapped and left a narrow pocket of air unshielded. That was the window. He marked the rhythm in his mind. 5 seconds apart, half-second gap. Precise, demanding, almost impossible. "Found your hole," Vega muttered, recognizing the glint in Hale's eyes. "You're serious about this?" "I'm always serious," Hale said. He reached into his pouch and drew out a single cartridge. The .50 BMG round gleamed dull brass under the weak light, heavy in his gloved hand. It wasn't just ammunition. It was a relic of human persistence. Every scratch on its casing carried the story of centuries spent perfecting the art of simple, brutal efficiency. No plasma, no quantum fields, just metal, powder, and purpose. He slid the round into the chamber with deliberate care. The click echoed softly through the air, a punctuation mark on their resolve. Vega felt it too, the shift in atmosphere, the narrowing of possibility into intent. "That sound," Vega said quietly, "is why they fear us." Hale adjusted his scope again, aligning crosshairs over the faint shimmer of movement atop the alien spire. Threx was there, visible as a translucent figure addressing his command through holographic projection. Around him, officers gestured, their bodies wreathed in faint luminescence. Hale slowed his breathing, drawing in air through clenched teeth until the tremor in his hands disappeared. His mind emptied. There was no past, no sound, no alien army. Only wind, distance, trajectory, and time. He had always believed that sniping was less about marksmanship and more about faith, faith in math, faith in instinct, faith in the brief moment where man and machine became one. "On my mark," Vega whispered. He checked the wind, the temperature, the subtle tremors in the ground. 3, 2. Hale exhaled. "Mark." The rifle thundered, shattering the silence with a violent crack that rippled across the frozen plain. The recoil slammed into his shoulder, the sound rolling through the valley like a distant avalanche. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the projectile streaked across the gap, its supersonic wake slicing through air and snow like invisible lightning. Vega tracked it with his scope, eyes wide. Impact in 3, 2. The shot met the shield at the exact half-second of its pulse gap. For an instant, the dome shimmered violently, unable to distribute the kinetic energy. The round punched through, tearing into the command spire. A flash of light flared against the distant horizon, followed by a deep, concussive roar. The entire alien ridge seemed to convulse. "Hit confirmed," Vega said, voice trembling. "You broke through their field." Through the scope, Hale watched as chaos unfolded. The hologram of General Threx flickered violently before collapsing into static. Sparks danced across the alien consoles. Officers stumbled back, shouting in confusion. Then a second explosion rippled from within the structure, a chain reaction feeding on its own energy source. Fire, blue and blinding, erupted upward, swallowed quickly by the snowstorm. Hale didn't smile. He just watched, unmoving, as the flames subsided into darkness. That's what arrogance gets you. Vega glanced toward the horizon, where alien reinforcements scrambled to re-establish their shield matrix. "They'll trace us any second." "Then we move," Hale said, disassembling the rifle with practiced efficiency. "Grab the data from your scope. Command will want proof." They moved low through the snow, the air vibrating with the distant hum of alien engines. Overhead, drones streaked through the storm, scanning for heat signatures. Hale ducked beneath a frozen ridge, his movements precise, measured. The shot still echoed in his mind, not as triumph, but as inevitability. He had seen too many wars to mistake one victory for the end. As they crawled through the frost, Vega glanced back toward the plume of smoke rising from the alien stronghold. "Think they'll still laugh at us?" Hale tightened his grip on the rifle. "They'll stop laughing. That's when they'll start learning." For a brief moment, he looked up. The aurora shimmered faintly through the storm, a spectral curtain of green light stretching across the heavens. It reminded him, absurdly, of home, of Earth skies long buried beneath the haze of conflict. Then the feeling passed. He touched the side of his helmet, Activating the encrypted command, Ghostline actual. Target neutralized. Shield breach confirmed. Commander Arlen's voice crackled through. Copy that, Ghostline. Extraction window in 12 minutes. Hold position. Negative, Hale replied. They'll be hunting the shot. We're already moving. A burst of static answered, then silence. Hale and Vega pressed forward into the widening storm, their outlines disappearing into the frozen void. Behind them, the wreckage of alien arrogance burned faintly beneath the snow, and for the first time since the invasion began, the valley was quiet. Hale didn't look back. There would be other shots, other lessons. But this one, the shot that broke their shield, would echo longest. Smoke coiled lazily into the pale sky, turning the horizon into a canvas of gray and blue. Hale and Vega crouched behind the jagged remains of an ice ridge, their bodies half buried in frost, breath steaming through their visors. The alien command spire, once a beacon of dominance, now lay fractured and burning across the valley floor. Blue fire licked at its broken hull, melting the surrounding snow into steaming pools that hissed like serpents in the cold. The silence that followed the destruction was unnatural. No more mocking broadcasts, no pulsing shields, no arrogant voices from the Dominion frequencies. The quiet felt heavier than the noise that had come before. Vega lowered his binoculars, eyes narrowing. That's confirmed. Command spire is gone. I'm reading full system failure on their shields. His voice was hushed, reverent even, as though afraid to disturb the aftermath. Hale didn't respond immediately. He lay prone, staring through his scope at the distant wreckage. The heat from the explosion distorted the air, turning the view into a trembling mirage. Check for movement, he said finally. They won't all be dead. Vega scanned the horizon again. Small, insect-like shapes moved among the ruins. Zha'kor soldiers retreating in disarray. Without their shield generators, their formations had collapsed into chaos. He watched one mech stumble sideways, sparks cascading from its armor, before it vanished into the smoke. They're pulling back, he said. That one shot scared them more than a whole battalion ever could. Fear is useful, Hale murmured. It makes people predictable. He rolled onto his side, ejecting the spent casing from the rifle. The brass shell gleamed faintly before sinking into the snow. It also makes them desperate. As if on cue, the ground beneath them trembled. The low-frequency rumble grew until it became a rhythmic pounding, approaching engines. Vega snapped his head toward the east. Through the mist, dark shapes emerged. Alien walkers, three-legged war machines with rotating plasma cannons. Their movement was methodical, searching, hunting. They're sweeping the ridge, Vegas said. They must have tracked the trajectory of the shot. Then we're still teaching them, Hale replied, his tone unshaken. He began disassembling the rifle, sliding each piece into its designated slot with practiced efficiency. Grab the scope and move north. The ridge curves down into the canyon. We can lose them there. Vega hesitated. And if they cut us off, then we shoot again. Hale's calm was almost unnatural, his every movement deliberate and sure. It wasn't arrogance. It was belief, the kind born of too many wars and too few survivors. They moved quickly, keeping low as snow kicked up around their boots. The air shimmered with residual heat from the destroyed spire, creating an eerie glow that turned the valley into a field of ghosts. The alien walkers advanced behind them, their weapons scanning for thermal traces. Each pulse of light carved brief holes in the blizzard before vanishing into white. By the time Hale and Vega reached the canyon lip, the wind had risen, masking their movement. They slid down the slope, boots digging into the crusted ice until they came to rest beside a cluster of boulders. Vega collapsed against the rock, gasping. You realize what you just did, right? You didn't just kill a general. You broke their illusion of invincibility. Hale crouched beside him, scanning the ridge above through the scope. Good. Maybe they'll start treating us like an enemy instead of an inconvenience. Vega gave a short laugh, one that turned into a cough. You got a strange sense of victory. This isn't victory, Hale said quietly. It's a message. He reached into his pouch and withdrew the small recording module from his rifle. The data inside contained the shot's trajectory, shield breach patterns, and energy readings, the proof that alien defenses weren't untouchable. Command will use this. They'll replicate it. That's the real win. A crack of plasma fire interrupted their conversation, searing through the snow above their heads. The alien walkers had found their trail. Hale rolled behind cover, drawing his sidearm while Vega fired a flare that burst midair, releasing a cloud of reflective chaff. The plasma bolts scattered, their targeting systems confused by the interference. Extraction's not coming fast enough, Vegas said, reloading. We'll need to hold out. Hale steadied his breathing, eyes narrowing as he peered through the blowing snow. Then we make it count. The aliens closed in, their metallic limbs carving deep furrows into the ground. Hale raised his rifle, reassembled with astonishing speed, and lined up another shot. He didn't aim for the walkers' weapons. He aimed lower, at the joint where metal met ice. When he fired, the impact shattered the leg assembly, sending the machine crashing into the snow. Its fall triggered a cascade of explosions as its power cells ruptured. The second walker hesitated, recalibrating, its hesitation giving Vega enough time to mark its position. 2 o'clock, 300 meters, he called. Hale pivoted, fired again. The bullet ricocheted off armor, but cracked an exposed coolant line. Steam hissed violently as the mech staggered back, blinded by its own exhaust. Time to go, Hale said, grabbing Vega by the arm. They sprinted deeper into the canyon, ducking beneath jagged shells of ice that glittered like glass. The wind howled behind them, carrying the fading echoes of alien distress calls. Minutes later, the comms in Hale's helmet crackled to life. Ghostline, this is Eagle 3. Visual on your beacon. Extraction inbound. Copy. Hale replied between breaths. Hot zone. Bring suppressive fire. The sky erupted as human aircraft swept over the canyon, unleashing a barrage of missiles into the alien formation. The explosions painted the world in fire and shadow. Hale and Vega crouched low as debris rained down, the roar of engines reverberating through their bones. When the dust finally settled, only silence remained once more, an ending echoing the beginning. Vega looked at Hale, his voice a rasp. Think they'll come back? Hale gazed toward the burning horizon. Of course, but next time, they'll keep their shields higher and their mouths shut. He bent down, picking the spent shell from the snow, its surface still warm. He turned it between his fingers before slipping it into a pouch on his vest. Let them study us, mock us, underestimate us. That's how humanity wins. We don't need to be faster or smarter. We just need them to forget what happens when we adapt. As the extraction ship descended in a swirl of snow and wind, Hale cast one last glance toward the ridge where it had all begun. The storm had already erased their footprints, covering the evidence of their defiance. But beneath that blanket of silence lay proof of what humanity could do when pushed to the edge, a single bullet that had spoken louder than any transmission. He climbed aboard the transport, rifle slung across his back. Vega followed, settling opposite him as the ramp closed. Neither spoke during ascent. Outside, Cryon-IV's horizon burned softly against the cold sky, a faint reminder that in war, sometimes one shot could change everything.